There,
Okay.
no. All right, let's get straight into the big story of the day. Really big story. Andrew has been stripped of his prince title. He has been kicked out of the Royal Lodge. The King started the formal process to remove his brother's titles and honours. He will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, Andrew Windsor for short, or just plain old Mr. Windsor. Formal notice has also been served for Andrew to surrender his lease at the Royal Lodge. He's lived in the 30-room home for 2 decades. His ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, will also move out. It looks like she's going to be on her own somewhere else. It's reported Andrew will move into private accommodation on the Sandringham Estate, which is privately funded by the King. And it's understood that Charles will also make a private financial provision for Andrew out of his own money. I feel sorry for the King because he's taken his time, hasn't he?
So this is the problem. This is about as tough as the King can be. But this isn't something new. This has been cooking for such a long time. If you go back to the legendary...
It's almost 20 years.
Yeah, well, obviously in terms of the time span of the allegations.
But the photo in Central Park was about that long ago.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the sort of lame attempts at justification with the bombshell Emily Maitlis interview, the absolute lack of contrition, the lack of empathy and then Virginia Giuffre taking her life. The settlement out of court for something that he doesn't remember. Everything was such a mess. And then that horrible bombshell email saying, we'll play together soon. Everything about it was so toxic. And I appreciate, the whole cliche of blood is thicker than water. But this was a point at which King Charles had to cut away the issue. And I'm glad he's done it now, but why has he taken so long?
Well, maybe the King will never win in this one. It is his brother. It's very hard to cut off your own brother. What do you think?
I don't know what kind of relationship they have, really, to be perfectly honest. But I think that this whole story has been another big test for this institution. And I think it's sort of proven itself to be still too slow, still too reactionary, still not able to get on the front foot with things like this. You remember the Princess of Wales's illness, which turned out to be a horrible, terrible personal thing that she was going through, but their sort of secrecy around it. And then they published the doctored picture and all that sort of stuff. And I think it was just an example of this institution not sort of operating with the speed you need in today's world.
But isn't that part of the charm of it? Just in the big picture, somebody once said, never let daylight in on magic. Yeah. And royalty is a kind of a nebulous concept.
Well, it's
you want the cameras in Buckingham Palace,
it's its charm until it's its downfall.
Well, yeah.
Isn't it? And
Andrew has virtually brought the whole thing to its knees, hasn't he?
Well, he's brought himself to his knees. Look, you've got to remember that he had a gilded life. He had every opportunity. He had every privilege. He was also a Falklands hero. He could have made good on the opportunities that he was given in life. And by default design, whatever his argument would be, he has brought himself to his knees. He's thrown shame on the royal family, but I am a very strong believer about the sins of the fathers. This is not his daughter's fault. It's not King Charles' fault. I agree with Darryl in terms of the speed with which they dealt with the issue and the royal family in general, the issue around Kate's illness, the secrecy, all those things have created complex, nuanced conversations. But on this, it was so black and white. I mean, like I say, Emily Maitlis made it clear. Are you saying to me you didn't know X? And the way he attempted to defend himself, I don't sweat, I don't go to a Pizza Express.
I never met her, I don't remember her. I mean, he didn't actually say, look, there are some girls, there's some women at the heart of this, or they were girls when he met her, who have been abused by somebody who I was friends with, and they were trafficked by Epstein.
And he lied about when he'd spoken to them. And there's another really key thing. This isn't punishment. This is PR, right? So and I think one of the most sort of striking bits of the statement was from Their Majesties. Are thinking of and have the deepest sympathy for the victims. That's the first time we've really heard that from these kind of statements. Certainly, it wasn't present in Andrew's statement when he relinquished being the Duke of York. So I think that's really, really important. But he also, aside from the institution, he knows things. He was there. He was in the room. He was on the planes. Why on earth wouldn't he come forward and have the conversations that he should be having with the likes of Congress to tell them what he knows?
Yeah. All right, let's talk to 5 News royal correspondent Simon Vigar, who's in Windsor. How quickly do you think Andrew will be out of the house, Simon?
Hi, Jeremy. Yeah, I think it'll move very quickly now that he will move to, as you've been saying, the private Sandringham Estate and a property there. There are several properties where, of course, the King can put him up, and this extraordinary internal exile will begin for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. I mean, there's really nothing like this. OK, the abdication in 1936, but even then, Edward VIII kept a title. He was still His Royal Highness, the Duke of Windsor. And there were some minor princes back during the First World War who were stripped of their princely status because they had sided with the Germans. So nothing like this. It's as your guests have been saying, the King has acted decisively, ruthlessly now, because this story just won't go away, and we don't know what else there is to come. But yeah, the statement last night was very clear that the King and the Queen, their thoughts are with the victims of all abuse, and very different to the statement a couple of weeks ago where Andrew said he was going to not use the titles. Well, this one was much more decisive, and undoubtedly not just the King, but also Prince William involved in the decision. And it's all about protecting the Crown. The Crown has to come first, and they will be looking at this ongoing media coverage the King heckled earlier in the week, as you've been reporting as well.
The biographer Andrew Loney, who wrote the book about Andrew, says that he would not be surprised if both Andrew and Sarah Ferguson end up in prison. Now, how does that process work? Are they facing anything in this country?
No, they're not. And in fact, Republic, the anti-monarchy campaigners, said they were going to launch a private prosecution yesterday because they're so fed up with the reaction of police in this country. But I mean, I think we have to be clear here. Prince Andrew has never been arrested. He's never been charged. He denies all the allegations against him. There was talk a couple of years ago of doing a video link interview with the FBI in the States as a witness, not as a suspect, and that never happened. Yes, Andrew Loney is saying that. Certainly the family of Virginia Giuffre say that it should not end here. And Republic, the anti-monarchy campaigners, launching their private prosecution, getting legal advice at the moment. They say all the talk of mansions and titles really misses the point. So, private prosecutions are very difficult, and you don't often hear them being successful, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there. At the moment, what's happened in the last couple of weeks with the emails, as your guests have been saying, the lies in those emails and the Virginia Giuffre posthumous memoir, that really has brought this to a head, an extraordinary situation.
Thank you so much. Simon Vigar at Windsor. After the break, we'll be joined by the royal biographer Ingrid Stewart. We'll take your calls as well, of course. Do you think the King was right to do this and decisive, or as Angela says, too slow? 0207 862 2222. See you shortly. Before the break, we asked which nostalgic treat has been voted the nation's favourite. Is it bread and butter pudding, trifle or Viennetta? It is this. Oh, God.
Lord.
Angela's so cross, it's trifle.
It is,
trifle.
I'm sorry.
She gets the answer wrong. Like that with the phone. It is like that with the phone.
And I was aiming it at you.
Furious, I know. I'm so sorry. OK, we're live on Fire with Angela and Darryl. Later, we will ask about Rachel Reeves, if we've got time, because we've got a lot of Andrew to discuss. Is the King right to strip him of his prince title? And we should actually just think the last few weeks seem to have just been the final straw. So let's have a look. Here we have a picture of Andrew in former times in all of his regalia. And what has happened is essentially the great big hooks have come down from the King and they've ripped it all off, the titles, the chains, the honours, and he's left in his nightshirt and he is fully and completely dislodged. And the lodge in that, of course, refers to Royal Lodge, the home. He doesn't need a 30-room home, but he was clinging on there. That's gone too. What was the straw that broke the camel's back just in the last few weeks? Do you know, it wasn't really a straw. It was almost a hay bale. There were so many straws, but I'll pick three out in particular. The lie, the book, the funeral. The lie was the first one. He told Emily Maitlis a lie. You don't do that. He told her he'd cut contact with Epstein in December of one year. He was actually still in touch with him, saying, we'll play again the following February. The book, poor Virginia Giuffre, who's now dead, in the book she says, we had sex 3 times. One was an orgy. He thought it was his birthright. And that's a victim of sexual trafficking who's speaking, who needs to be regarded. And in the funeral, I wonder whether this was the last straw. This behaviour by Fergie and Andrew, laughing during the Duchess of Kent's funeral. Look at Sophie, Duchess of Wessex there, not impressed, trying not to speak to him. He then gets close to William, and William is really glacial here, trying to basically get out of the situation where he's having to talk to him. Doesn't really say a word. Andrew won't hold back in these public events. Eventually, he's cold-shouldered and he looks furious. So maybe they thought, look, if he can't behave at a funeral, we have to basically push him back by force. Look at the titles. All of them. Earl of Inverness, Baron Killyleagh, Vice Admiral Royal Naval, Colonel of the Grenadier Guards, Colonel-in-Chief Royal Irish, the Small Arms School Corps, Colonel Royal Lancers, Colonel Yorkshire Regiment, Fleet Air Arm, Honorary Air Commodore RAF Lossiemouth, Knight Grand Cross of Royal Victorian Order, Knight of Most Noble Order of the Garter, Duke of York and Prince. And what has happened? All of them have been demolished by the King's action, right down to Duke of York, and yesterday Prince went as well. And it's as dramatic as that. It's an extraordinary moment, isn't it, Angela?
It really, really is. And as I mentioned previously, you know, he was a Falklands hero. It's not like he's not done tough stuff. But I think the arrogance, the fact that he felt he was impregnable, you couldn't get past him, the sense of entitlement. I think he was almost delusional. I think he thought they cannot possibly get me because otherwise it's almost you can't rationalise.
But I wonder whether had he not been constantly just annoying them with the stuff that we mentioned there, they might have let him just stay in his lodge and keep quiet. But he can't resist, can he? At the funerals, classically awful behaviour.
Yeah, it was really. And it's funny, looking at all of those titles there, the whole thing just, I mean, I'm not a raging Republican necessarily. I sort of, I'm interested in the debate, but I'm not a raging Republican. But you look at all of those and you think, God, this is ludicrous. This is sort of like this ridiculous sort of, fantasy cosplay that we're engaging with here. When these are, this is an institution that is sort of entrenched in entitlement, and it's absolutely no surprise that he has come through, bred by this institution, to feel as though and believe that he is completely untouchable.
Let's just talk to royal biographer Ingrid Seward about this, because we're looking for precedents here, Ingrid. And I was born in 1965, and I gather 1936 and Edward VIII and all that. But even this feels more brutal than anything I've ever seen.
Well, I think it feels like Henry VIII's time. I mean, he was the last king to remove titles from his family when he removed them, when he divorced their mothers, and that was Elizabeth and Catherine. And apart from an instance in the First World War, when some of the German princelings lost their titles because they were siding with the Kaiser, this is unprecedented. But I think the king had to be decisive. He had to be seen to be decisive because people were they were baying for something to be done.
Yeah.
And obviously as king, he has to listen to to public opinion. It's really important because we have a constitutional monarchy, and the king has said himself, we have no power. The only power we have is by the influence we have. And Andrew really saw to the end of that. So something had to be done.
And just on Sandringham, my understanding is from people who know these things, the problem with Windsor is, if regardless of the size of house, he's visible to people when he's cavorting on his horse and everything. So he was in the papers every day. Sandringham's not the same situation, I gather.
Well, Sandringham's a private estate. So it is easier to be private there, and the king, I beg your pardon, the late Queen and Prince Philip used to get very annoyed when journalists sort of stormed up to Sandringham and took photographs of them out shooting, and Prince Philip used to swear at reporters. So they can get onto the estate. I mean, there's public areas, but it's far more private than Windsor, and in a way far less visible. Yeah. Although maybe, of course, and the fact that you might see Andrew walking around might even be seen as a bit of an attraction. I don't know. But he has an opportunity to have a bit of a life there.
Do stay with us. Cindy is in Essex. Do you think the king has done the right thing, Cindy?
Yes, I absolutely do. But I'm very disappointed to think that he's going to be given a house and some form of an income for doing what?
Well, I think if you said to him, we have got you a terraced house in the Lake District in a normal street, you genuinely do have a security issue there. I think, you could easily wake up one morning and somebody's killed him or something. And so he does need to be, he can't live in a normal house, can he, Cindy? Or would you like that?
Well, I just think back to the poor girl that's committed suicide that the story is all about.
Yeah.
What has she got? She's lost her life. Her family have lost her. Whether or not people say she set herself up for it or not, he is guilty, and a normal person would now be in prison. They would have been taken to court, and they would certainly not be given a royal residence where they could ride their horses in privacy and have an income. I mean, if you have an income, you earn it. What is he going to do to earn that income?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I gather somebody told me that all he does is sit around watching, is it Jet TV, which shows planes taking off and landing at Heathrow?
And video games as well.
All he does, and video games all day long. Cindy, in the book by Virginia, she describes Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in jail, as an apex predator who brought her to Epstein with catastrophic consequences. And Ghislaine was Andrew's best mate, and that is a problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as I say, there's a lot of things he could do to even... He can't apologise because I suppose he's admitting guilt, but he could do something to put himself back in favour with the general public. There's a lot of community work he could be involved with. Yeah. He could be showing some remorse for the girl's death.
Thank you, Cindy. Let me ask Ingrid about that, because that is always the thought. Profumo is the model. Profumo had a terrible scandal in the 60s. Defence Secretary, War Secretary as he was, who'd slept with not prostitutes, but sort of some young women. And Ingrid, he worked in a soup kitchen for the rest of his life, and my God, by the time he died, people loved him. But I don't think that'll work for Andrew, will it?
I don't think people are ever going to love Andrew. And I think that anything he does at this precise moment is going to be seen as a sort of publicity ploy. If we saw Andrew, say, sweeping the roads, people were going to say, well, that's not true at all. I think he has to just lay very, very quiet for a bit. I mean, whether that'll happen or not, I don't know, because we don't know what else is going to happen. But I think he has to really, really keep his head down and not be seen out riding, not be seen out walking. I think he's really got to sort of, I suppose, do what he has been doing, watch television.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's been out on that blooming horse. Yvonne in London, hi.
Oh, hi, Jeremy. This is the second time I've been on your show. You're a great father. Anyway, I just thought to add that.
Great father, that's nice.
Great father, because you always talk about your lovely daughters.
Oh,
which
I love my daughters,
wholly admire. I'd like you to be my dad, because I don't have one. Anyway.
So lovely. Well, I tell you one thing. When I saw, this is the ragey bit of me. He's 41 as a prince, and he's standing with his arm round a 17-year-old and with a bare midriff. And that's my daughter. That was my daughter's age.
Yes, but she went back 3 times. Now, listen, I'm not in favour. No. Listen, hang on, please.
Yeah, okay.
Please,
all right.
If I was going to an island, I would know exactly why and where I'm going. Where were her family? I see her brother on the television. There's no tears falling from his eyes, and his agenda. He is the brother. Why isn't he looking after her?
But I think, Yvonne, I know you want to say all this, but is it not inappropriate when she's taken her own life and she was sex trafficked as a child? I mean, she was 16 when she met Ghislaine. You can't blame her, can you?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying. No. I'm not blaming her, but 3 times. After the first time, you would say, oh, gosh, he's a prince and da-da-da-da-da. I don't blame Andrew. He was always known as Randy Andy. I remember seeing in the Sun newspaper many, many years ago, him on a yacht full of all glamorous women. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Randy Andy.
But she was a victim of sex trafficking. All right. Thank you, Yvonne. Thanks for your lovely words about me.
Can I just pick that up?
Yeah, please do.
I was just going to say, you mentioned, Jeremy, the comparison ends here, but you've got 2 lovely daughters, as we know. Andrew is the father of 2 girls. Even for a second, if all these things are true, How would he have felt if this had happened to his girls?
Of course.
The idea
He doesn't
of him,
see them as the same human beings.
He can it's almost like he's a bit he's so disaffected, and he's put it into a box and said, that's this part of my life, and I don't relate it to other parts of my life.
It's princesses and people who don't matter.
Yeah.
Ingrid Seward, thank you so much for joining us, and it's a packed old show today. More talk soon, Ingrid, thank you. 0207 862 2222 is the number you need. Just talking about whether the King has done enough, done it quickly enough, done too much. You tell us. See you in a moment. Before the break, we asked what is the only horror film to have won Best Picture? Psycho, Silence of the Lambs, or the other one? It's The Silence of the Lambs. Not a horror film.
Silence of the Lambs.
Scary, but
it's
not
terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
I don't think it's a horror. I think it's a thriller.
No, it's not. What with the sewing machine scene?
What was the sewing machine
When
scene?
he's using body parts.
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah,
Ooh.
okay, might have been.
Right.
We're talking about Andrew being stripped of his prince title. He's Mr. Windsor now. Virginia Giuffre's family has welcomed the news, but they do still want an investigation.
It's not enough. It's not enough. We have to have some sort of investigation that goes further into this. I mean, he's still walking around a free man. I commend the king. I think he's doing an amazing job as a world leader, setting a precedent. But we need to take it one more step further. He needs to be behind bars.
Well, let's talk to a friend of the show, Anne Widdecombe, about this, because you've always said, Anne, that until there's a conviction, you cannot say the guy is guilty.
That's right. And that is what I do say. And the fact is, and I think Ingrid used the right word, she said baying. And that is what we've seen. We've seen virtually a lynch mob through the press and media. He's never been convicted of anything. She herself is not exactly, I think, a model of truth. She accused Dershowitz of similar activities. He, unlike Andrew, and let me come to that in a minute, turned round and fought, and she suddenly said, oh, she'd made a mistake. Well, I'm sorry, you don't make mistakes of that order of magnitude. Then she was in hospital, having had a terrible accident, and with 4 days to live, she barely had a scratch. I do not think that she is a woman of truth. Let me also come to the photograph, Jeremy, which you're always quoting. According to her own posthumously published autobiography, according to her own account, she was the one who rushed off to get a camera because she thought her mother would never forgive her if she met somebody of Prince Andrew's stature and didn't take a photograph. Now, that's her account. It's not quite the sleazy one that you seem to favour.
Well, she was...
actually...
Okay.
Okay, go on.
No, I was just going to say, she is dead, and to say she's not truthful is a bit rough on her when she was a victim of sex trafficking.
And she also, by her own admission in the autobiography, got other girls for Epstein. So she also did that. And I'm sorry, I'm very sorry for her and for the fact that she committed suicide. That does not make her a model of truth. And that is what I've said throughout this. There is just too much willingness to condemn without objective assessments. And the only time we did start to get some movement towards objectivity was after all that nonsense when she was in hospital. And suddenly journalists who'd had nothing to say in favour of Andrew suddenly raised questions. And then, of course, the suicide turned it all the other way again. So I simply say that he has been convicted of nothing. And before you ask why, therefore, did he pay out millions of pounds, the answer is, and we all forget it, the answer is that he was being pressured to do that, including by your profession, because if he didn't do it, the Queen's Jubilee was going to be Platinum Jubilee. It was going to be completely overshadowed, and it wasn't exactly the sort of thing to go with Paddington and marmalade sandwiches. So that was why he did it. And now, of course, just let me finish with this one. Now, of course, what will be said is, oh, if he wasn't guilty, the king wouldn't have stripped him of everything. That is what is going to be said now. That's why I think it's gone too far. To leave Royal Lodge, yes, he should have done that yonks ago and of his own volition. Yes, but to be stripped of a title that wasn't conferred on him, it's simply automatic for anybody who's the son of a monarch. I think has gone a step too far.
Thank you very much for joining us, Anne Widdecombe. Gareth in Rhondda Cynon-Taf, hello.
Good morning, Jeremy.
What do you think of what Anne said?
Perverted middle-aged gentleman. But my point is, he's been kicked out of the Royal Lodge at Windsor. He's been given a property on the supposedly private-funded Sandringham Estate by the King.
Yep.
But my question is, where does the King get his money from?
Well, I think we know the King is a rich man. Yeah.
No. He gets his money. All the money that's accumulated by the monarchy has come from the British people.
Yeah.
We are still paying for Andrew. Right.
What would you do instead? What would you do instead, Gareth? Because you'd have to set him up. I'm trying to think of an address you could put him without causing offence to people there. But you give him a house in Newcastle. Okay, you put him in Jedburgh. Is that okay? Can we do that? It's a nice part of Newcastle, right?
No.
What happens then?
Extradition.
What?
Extradition.
Extradition. So they send him to the States. Actually, do you know what?
He's got to start answering the questions. This is the point. Is that he's terrified of going to America because he's going to get hauled in front of Congress.
Of course he is.
And we're talking here a lot about what's the best for Andrew, what's best for this institution, and this poor institution that's trying to fighting for survival and trying to save its name and all that sort of stuff. When the reality is here, and we've strayed a couple of times this morning, quite frankly, into victim blaming.
Yes, we have. And I said to Anne I wouldn't interrupt her because she wanted to come in on that basis. And I was sorely tempted there.
She makes, I understand, and she doesn't. She makes a point that Andrew has not been found guilty of anything, and I think that is a fair point, and I think it's fair that it's included in the conversation.
Nor was Jimmy Savile
in the conversation. For sure. So I mean, there's one way of solving that, which is have a day in court. He didn't need to settle. He could have gone through the process of proving his innocence, couldn't he, in that process? So I don't accept that as being. I don't accept that as a rationale.
Definitely not.
And the fact of the matter is that there are people here. There are people who know stuff about what happened. There is an incomplete picture about what happened on those islands, on those jets, that led to the abuse of young girls. And Andrew is a key cog in that he was there and he witnessed it. And so this is, if nothing else, it's cowardice. It's moral cowardice that he is engaging here.
And also, and I'm sorry, I loathe the connection. Can I just say repeatedly, I am not related to Jeffrey Epstein. All those people on Twitter.
I never thought you were.
Not you
do
two.
people say, that's his daughter?
Constant.
Oh.
I can say, I think people that live on main roads should whatever. And they'll say, well, you would say that. You're related to Jeffrey Epstein. So I get Brian Epstein of the Beatles, please, let's focus on him.
Okay.
But the fact is that Prince Andrew didn't consider for a moment that perhaps it was appropriate to cut off his connection with Epstein. We now have the infamous picture in Central Park. We know that he was invited to one of his daughter's birthday parties there, the 18th at Royal Lodge, after a warrant had been issued for Epstein's arrest.
He was a convicted paedophile when he still had contact.
All of those things.
We know that's the terrible thing.
The optics.
Watch the documentary Filthy Rich if you want to see all the details of that. Okay, we'll talk more about this and other things. We do want to know if you still trust the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. She's been accused of misleading the Prime Minister over her rent licence. But we'll take more calls first on Andrew being stripped of his titles. What do you think of what's happened? It is very, very dramatic. Almost without precedent. 0207 862 2222. We'll see you in a moment. Before the break, we asked which country's flag features the words order and progress. Is it Brazil, Paraguay, or El Salvador? And the answer is Brazil. Let's have a look at the flag, shall we? I don't remember. Oh, okay.
Wow.
Ordem e
progresso.
Progresso.
There we are. That's
Italian, that.
I missed that.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, I said El Salvador. I'm rusty on my flags.
Jeremy,
I spent ages learning them.
You know what you have to do.
I've got to get back,
You've got
revise.
to get back on the flag.
We need to take some more calls on Andrew because so many people are calling us. He's lost the lot, really. He's now Mr. Windsor. He might have a little bit of security on Sandringham. I doubt it. I don't know whether if he wants to get groceries and stuff, does he have to go to the shops himself, or how does it work? He's bumped back down to what is almost normal life. But still doesn't have to work.
No home, no title, no status. When you have those things and then you don't have them, it's not normal life.
If I hadn't seen such riches, I could live with being poor.
Oh, It's such a great line. And it is that thing in The Crucible where the character says, I only have my name. And that's why he has to die, because he cannot confess to something he didn't do. Andrew's almost the opposite.
We touched on Profumo very quickly. I know we're going to move on to calls, but Profumo, he worked in the East End with the poor. He was cleaning toilets. He ended up getting a CBE for that. He was entirely rehabilitated because he was contrite. He accepted the humiliation.
Never gave an interview. No. And I was told that there was a royal banquet that he was invited to and the Queen asked to sit next to him. Isn't that amazing?
Amazing.
Such a moving thing. This is all very different because Andrew doesn't accept he's done anything wrong. Alan in Edinburgh, is this the right punishment?
Well, personally, I don't agree with any of it. I mean, I'm a Scottish nationalist and I can do without all your royal family. And I'm not going to stick up for Andrew, but he hasn't done anything legally wrong. He hasn't been convicted of anything. He's only been trialled by media like yourselves. And your libertarian on the panel there, he's always sticking up for people's human rights. What happens now when there's no such thing as innocent till proven guilty? And Whittaker made all my points for me while I was waiting.
Yeah. She said what you just said. Yeah.
I don't actually necessarily disagree. I think it's a reasonable argument that you make, Alan, which is, and I do think that sort of sanctity of being assumed innocent until proven guilty. I think that the key here, though, is that there has been opportunity for him to clear his name, and he hasn't taken it. There's been invitation to him to come and answer some questions, particularly in front of Congress in the US, about what he knows, and he hasn't taken it. And actually, his crime really is having sort of tried to fly through this as if he was completely untouchable, when we know that he's lied.
No, the crime was having
that's the accusation.
A relationship with a 17-year-old who was sex trafficked. I mean, and that may not be a crime in law. It's about, Alan, it's not just being a criminal, it's about filthy behaviour for a prince. That's what this is about.
It's got nothing to do with his title. I've got a friend that's been in the jail for doing, it wasn't for that, it was for photographs. And we cut off all contact with him, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
But
here you give Andrew the benefit of the doubt.
He got convicted of what he done. Andrew has never been convicted.
But Alan, with privilege comes responsibility. If you want the pleasure, you have to have the pain. And respectfully, your friend, I don't know what the circumstances are, but it sounds like a fairly vile situation. But Andrew had he had profile, he had opportunities, and he had privilege. And you don't trash those.
He's never been convicted of anything.
Okay.
No, but this, we're not talking about criminal conviction. We're not talking about the presumption of innocence because he's not been accused of something in law. We're talking about the optics, and we're talking about his reaction to what has been disclosed, and that he is the author of his own downfall.
Okay, Alan, thank you. You made us think there. We should have got. There's a clip, and I think I probably can't get it quickly enough. But it's question time audience last night. Fiona Bruce says, "All right, stop the recording because it's almost recorded an hour before it goes out." I've got to tell you the news. Andrew's lost his title. The whole audience starts applauding. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that.
And it's like, God, that's a sign. Margaret in Tyne and Wear, do you think that this is the right punishment?
Yes, I do, Jeremy. Jeremy, can I just say one thing, though? A little bit earlier in your show, you said that you could send him to Newcastle, but we don't want him up here.
No, I did. Look, I thought very carefully. I thought I need a proud city, a city I love. I'm not going to suggest somewhere down at heel, but somewhere where a person might love to live, right? But I appreciate, and this is the point, isn't it? This is why he has to stay in internal exile in Sandringham, because I don't think he'd be able to go out to the pub in Newcastle, would he, Margaret?
But he wouldn't. But there's a nice little home in Durham. There's a nice little home in Durham owned by the Queen called Franklin. He would be well suited to that. Anyway, Jeremy.
That's a prison, yeah.
Yes, it is. Can I just ask you something? Earlier on in the show that you said that the king.
This is like the second thing about. Okay, go on. Yeah.
Did you edit that?
We're going back over the whole show. Okay. Earlier on in the show, I said what else?
You said that the king had cut ties. But cut ties with his brother. Your idea of cutting ties and my idea of cutting ties are totally different because he's still got the privileges of having a beautiful home.
Yeah.
Lovely home that he doesn't have to pay for. Albeit he's a prisoner, he can't go out. I mean that's the end of his social, social days go.
I know you're going to say he got free food for the rest of his life, but he's kind of in prison now, isn't he?
It's a gilded cage. It's a gilded cage.
He's in a gilded cage, and he may live for another, he's 5 years older than me. He might live to be 95. He might have 30 years just walking around the lounge.
Yes, good.
But, okay, fine. If that's what you want, that's fine.
If these two ladies waiting in the background come forward and do the same thing, I hope he's put to trial. That gentleman on the show said he hasn't been found guilty. Well, no, he hasn't been found guilty because he hasn't gone to court. He hasn't had a trial.
He had an opportunity as well, by the way.
Actually, that's true.
He had an opportunity to clear his name.
It's a good answer, that, to the he hasn't been found guilty thing, which Anne Widdecombe says, which is that he could have gone to the States and appeared in a legal case. Margaret, thank you. Thanks for watching so closely. Neville in Manchester, hi.
Hi, good morning, panel. Hurrah, hurrah, God save the King, long live the King. The cancer has been excised.
Yeah, it's harsh words, isn't it? But that's how you feel, obviously.
Oh, certainly. And, it's like I said when I was on the show the other day, Jeremy, everybody keeps moaning about, he's not been convicted, he's not been charged with anything. Yet neither was Jimmy Savile. No. But yet, look how we threw him down the toilet.
Well, Fred West is another example. If this technical thing of people are, unless you're convicted, you're not guilty. OK, then Fred West is innocent because he killed himself before the court case. So,
honestly, Anne Widdecombe's defence as well. I can't wait for her little glass bauble that she lives in to break. When is she going to get real?
Well, she's trying to be fair, Neville, in fairness to Anne. And, normally when she's in the studio, she will give you back and forth on this, but she was down the line from Devon.
She would.
Yes, she would. She would. Jeanette in Lancashire, hi. Hey, Jeanette.
Hello, good morning, panel.
What do you think of what's happened?
Well, I agree with what's happened. It's the right decision to take. But when they say...
Oh, I can't hear you. Richard in Swansea, hi.
Hi.
What do you think of what's happened?
I've got a very controversial outlook on the opposite side of things.
Yeah.
That if Andrew had been dating a 17-year-old English girl, he would have done absolutely nothing wrong. And the sex trafficking part that is claimed is Epstein's issue, i.e. that he did it. I'm not defending Andrew, but what I am saying is that the uproar from the country seems to be that he is a target rather than a convicted felon. And the fact that he's not convicted is very, very dodgy, that we're going to tear somebody's life apart for this, although I wouldn't want to see him.
Should he have stayed friends with Epstein when he knew Epstein was a raging paedophile?
Absolutely not. But the emotion from the country is on I believe, his aim, because nobody is taking effect of the grooming gangs that exist in the UK now, and we are outraged because of that. But there's a guy there dating a 17-year-old that is disgusting.
Dating is a very weird word to use, Richard.
It's freighted with romance and expectations. We also have to remember, sorry, I'm wagging my pen because I'm so aggrieved by this, is that you kind of embolden the whole concept of sex trafficking. And the famous interview with Emily Maitlis, she says, well, why did you have to go and speak to him directly? Why don't you just cut off all contact? He said, well, that's problematic. I felt I needed to speak to him. She said, you stayed in his house for 4 days to
Well, he said,
I
may, if I have a fault, it's that I'm too honourable.
Yes, too honourable. And she said, well, why did you stay in his house? And he said, well, it's convenient. If you keep...
It was a convenient place to stay. I know every word. It's like Fawlty Towers. I know every word.
Yeah,
It was a convenient place to stay.
Napoleon said, if your enemy is making a mistake, don't interrupt them. And that's exactly what he was doing.
Yeah, the interview had of course, in the end, this wouldn't have happened had it not been for the interview. That was the disaster. And of course, it was his own judgment that led him into that room, thinking he could just busk away.
Entitled,
I think it was going to happen anyway, because it was bubbling, wasn't it? So I think it was going to happen anyway.
Let's move on now.